The hype for Call of Duty is slowly returning thanks to the release of the 6th part of Black Ops that promises to return to the roots of the saga, born in 2010. The Call of Duty feeling we had before the game fell into the greedy practices of today's industry, with invasive ads and micropayments for the most insignificant things within the game. Activision used to make games like Guitar Hero, Skylanders, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but that's been buried to give top priority to Call of Duty. Crash Bandicoot has managed to sneak in among their projects in recent years, yet they didn't even give it continuity. During the 80s, Activision had the honor of being the first independent developer of console video games, leading the way for other companies in the industry. A pity that they are now so despised by the community. Launched in 2003 for PC, Call of Duty surprised gamers at the time with an intense story set in World War II and mechanics similar to Medal of Honor, the most popular first-person shooter of the time. With each installment, Call of Duty was gaining more personally and forming a solid base of players, but it still lacked a commercial boom to finish its consolidation. That explosion did not take long to arrive, for in 2007 the world was introduced to Call of Duty 4, better known as Modern Warfare. The franchise took a risk with this new proposal, changing the trenches of the Second World War for the technology of today, combined with the story about a hypothetical Third World War. From the threats of terrorism to the dirty secrets of the world's elites, Modern Warfare transferred the common fears of the 2000s to gamers' screens, and boy did they love the result. Modern Warfare was a massive success, sales and reviews, breaking records in all markets and putting the Call of Duty game on the map, especially in the online arena. Activision was right to entrust Infinity Ward with the task, although there was another studio on its payroll that also wanted to prove its worth. Treyarch was a smaller developer of Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast video games until Activision acquired it in 2001, making it the studio behind titles like 007 Quantum of Solace and the video game adaptation of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, basically making movie spin-off games. However, Treyarch's first big task was to develop the third Call of Duty installment, again set in World War II. This title was Treyarch's first contact with the saga and was well received by the public, so they reused the formula in 2008 with Call of Duty World at War. Following what was started by Modern Warfare, World at War offered a frenetic campaign with different points of view and a competitive multiplayer that boosted kill streaks, a feature that was unknown for its time but today is one of the emblems of the saga. Speaking of which, World at War introduced zombies, a game mode that almost works as a game on its own. Since then, there are 3 types of Call of Duty players: campaign fans, multiplayer fans, and zombie fans. Including zombies in a realistic action game was certainly a risky bet, but time has proven Treyarch right, and today it's one of the reasons Call of Duty is still at the top of the sales charts. Going back to the past, World at War was another step in the right direction for the saga, that in 2009 went through another great success that changed its status quo. We are talking about Modern Warfare 2 in 2009, the sequel to the 2007 game that improved everything its predecessor did and took it to another level of epicness. With a campaign with iconic characters like Captain Price, Makarov, and controversial moments like Remember No Russian, Modern Warfare 2 became an example that shooters also knew how to tell stories. On the other hand, we had its online mode, full of legendary maps, amazing weapons, a rewarding progression system, and frenetic gameplay that made you feel like you were on the battlefield. Undoubtedly, Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer laid the foundation for the FPS of the next decade, and there is still some of its essence in today's games. The COD series had taken off like never before in the late 2000s. From struggling to find a niche in the industry, they became the kings of shooters in just under 10 years. Yes, they gained a lot of fame and money, but that created another problem: the sickness of success. Could they navigate those turbulent waters, or would they end up sinking into oblivion? It was all in Treyarch's hands. True to its annual cycle, Activision handed over the responsibility of the next Call of Duty to Treyarch, which came with a good pace after World at War, and now had to overcome a colossus. The studio got to work with a new direction for the franchise. While they stuck to the World at War universe, they discarded the game's narrative as it focused too much on the events of World War II and not so much on the characters and their development arcs. Therefore, they aimed to create a story as ambitious as that of Modern Warfare, but with a unique personality, worthy of becoming the other side of Call of Duty. Again, Treyarch went back in time and looked at a conflict that they had barely been explored in video games: the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Bay of Pigs, and of course the Vietnam War. These are just some of the scenarios in which Alex Mason, the protagonist of this game, had to get into. For the first time, players were not in control of the typical generic soldier, but incarnated the skin of an American Special Forces operative who had his own mental battles. Apart from the gunfights and epic scenes, Black Ops emphasized the internal conflicts of its characters and the consequences of their actions. This was complemented by real footage of the events and criticism of the governments involved in the plot. It was like being behind the curtain of the Cold War, a conflict that set the course of our world. Sure, Treyarch didn't forget about online mode, presenting a continuous formula with what we saw in Modern Warfare 2, which wasn't a bad thing at all. If it works, why fix it? Zombies mode was also a total success, with the introduction of the Kino der Toten map, a fan favorite. Treyarch had a gigantic responsibility with maintaining the hype of Modern Warfare 2, and they more than surpassed it, with their own vision of what Call of Duty should be. From that point on, the debate was born: Modern Warfare or Black Ops? Once again, Activision was on the cusp of glory. The money was pouring in, and their showcases were full of awards. They were on everyone's lips. Officially, Call of Duty had become one of the most powerful brands in the market, crossing the barriers of the gaming sector. That meant that they had to surpass themselves again and deliver a better product than the previous one, a challenge that seemed impossible. Infinity Ward managed to close its trilogy in 2011 with Modern Warfare 3, the first title in the franchise that caused some division among fans. While some praised it for its epic campaign and intense online mode, others considered it a weak sequel, almost like a Modern Warfare 2.5. Regardless of the community's opinions, the game sold like never before, reaching the $1 billion mark after 16 days of its release. For context, the Avatar movie achieved that figure in 19 days. In order to not lose that status, Activision had to surprise the world for the fourth time after 3 years of glory. Perhaps its good streak was coming to an end, or was it? Bobby Kotick, Activision's renowned CEO, announced in November 2011 that the company was already working on a new title that would present a significant innovation for the saga. As the people responsible for the next Call of Duty, Treyarch decided to play it safe and make a sequel to Black Ops, a name that by itself already sold a lot. They could have done anything and it would have been a success, but instead they decided to make the best shooter, or one of the best shooters of all time. The studio was quite clear that they wanted something with the cinematic essence of Black Ops, but with their own style. Therefore, they set the game in a completely unknown environment for the franchise. It was 2011, and Treyarch was imagining what 2025 would be like, or rather, the wars of 2025. Nor did they forget the narrative arc of the first Black Ops. Quite the contrary, actually. The campaign jumped between the 1980s and 2025. Alex Mason is the protagonist of the past, while his son David is the protagonist of the future. In both scenarios, the objective is the same: to hunt down Raul Menendez, a drug trafficker who, driven by thirst for revenge, was determined to punish the United States and the rest of the world's superpowers, giving way to a second Cold War that was much less cold than the previous one. In 2025, players lived the consequences of their actions in the 80s, creating a unique dynamic in the franchise that still feels fresh today. To that, we must add on innovative decision system that was not something common in the shooters at the time. Such a system was called Strike Force, where the player took control of different assets on the battlefield, such as UAVs, fighter planes, and robots, belonging to the weaponry of the future. Depending on the player's strategies, a character in the story could die, and that did not mean the game was over. The campaign continued to run its course with the weight of that loss, which could result in 4 different endings. Just like the first installment, Black Ops 2 featured the appearance of historical figures such as Angolan military officer Jonas Savimbi and Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega. There is even a mission in which Alex Mason captures Noriega. However, this game is not American propaganda. Treyarch was not afraid to make various comments critical of the CIA's modus operandi and the dirty laundry of the US government. Among the game's writers, it is worth mentioning that the talent of David S. Goyer, screenwriter of films such as Batman Begins and Man of Steel, who boosted the world building of Black Ops, was also included in the writing of this game. The franchise has also accustomed us to elite voice actors, and Black Ops 2 was no exception, with names like Sam Worthington, Michael Keaton, Michael Rooker, and other Hollywood heavyweights. Likewise, the campaign mode leaped in quality compared to Modern Warfare, which focused on large-scale warfare. Not only are such scenarios present in Black Ops 2, but there are also stealth and espionage missions, clandestine operations, and infiltration. As a new mechanic, the developers added the option to change your class before each mission, something that stuck around for the rest of the games. The focus of Treyarch was the narrative aspect, showing raw situations that portray the horrors of war, as well as maintaining the moments of spectacle and adrenaline of the saga. It was the same thing that happened to Black Ops 1, only at a different level, which means that the multiplayer was also improved. With such a short production time, there aren't many details about the development process of each Call of Duty. As soon as it releases one game, Activision is already working on the next. However, we do have some details on the alpha and beta versions of Black Ops 2, thanks to a channel called Prototype Preservation, that is no longer with us. Activision took down their channel with strikes. Thanks to that material, we can appreciate the first design of the hijacked map with the curious message that says Bon Voyage. It refers both to the French term Bon Voyage and to David Vonderhaar, a video game designer who worked for many years at Treyarch. As for the rest of the yacht, the location of objectives and the dimensions of the map were very different from what we saw in the final version. Plaza is another map that has nothing to do with its final version. The distribution of space was completely different, to the point that it's almost not recognizable. And so we can continue with each map of the game. Carrier, Slums, Meltdown, each one was very different before we put our feet on them. A sign of how much the developers rethink their decisions before presenting a final product. After 2 years of development, Black Ops 2 was ready for the world. But was the world ready for it? At the beginning of 2012, the public had no idea about the next Call of Duty beyond Bobby Kotick's statement last year. The first unofficial glimpse was through the Amazon France store, where a product called Call of Duty Black Ops 2 appeared and was soon removed. On the other hand, we have Hugo Bayer, a computer game artist who worked for Nerve Software, an independent developer that collaborated in the development of some Activision games, like the first Black Ops. Bayer listed Black Ops 2 on his LinkedIn CV, and to no one's surprise, his entire profile was subsequently deleted. As time went on, more retail chains listed Black Ops 2 in their catalog and even marked November as the release date. Finally, Activision stopped hiding the obvious and began leaking information about the game, revealing the logo and poster through external sources. On April 23, 2011, Activision announced the full reveal of the game for May 1st, 2012, during the NBA playoffs. Even so, parts of the Call of Duty website were activated hours before the announcement to showcase the title and the release date. When the time came, the reveal trailer was unveiled to the world, the first glimpse of the Cold War of the 21st century. With almost 40 million views, it is one of the most watched trailers in the gaming industry to date. Fans didn't wait any longer and started pre-ordering the game in mass, surpassing 3 times the number of Black Ops 1 pre-orders. If there was already a lot of hype for the game, Activision took it to new levels with a live-action trailer featuring actors such as Omar Sy, Robert Downey Jr., and others, continuing one of the traditions of the saga. Black Ops 2 was already popular even before its release, but how did it perform when it released? Well, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 hit stores on November 13th, 2012, for PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360, and later for the Wii U. It only took 1 day to accumulate $500 million, making it the biggest entertainment release of all time until GTA 5 surpassed it in September 2013. For the 4th year in a row, Activision was breaking sales records. It was competing against itself. After 1 week of release, the game had surpassed 7.5 million copies sold. To date, Black Ops 2 has sold 24.5 million copies, making it the 3rd best-selling game in the series behind Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 3. As for the reviews, news sites such as IGN, Game Informer, and GameSpot praised the new and serious tone of the campaign, the innovative decision system, and of course the futuristic setting that seemed risky at first but ended up paying off. At the end of 2012 and beginning of 2013, there was no talk of anything else but Black Ops 2. The online lobbies were packed and YouTube was going through an epidemic of highlights in Nuketown. It was undoubtedly the online game of the moment, and it wasn't fully online. Many gamers enjoyed the campaign and the zombie mode that introduced the transit map and other mechanics within the objective of surviving the endless wave of undead. Unsurprisingly, Activision exploited the game to the fullest, releasing 4 DLCs that added more maps to the multiplayer and zombies mode. 12 years after its release, how has time treated Black Ops 2? Well, pretty good, given that the game is still remembered with much affection and nostalgia by its fans, and we can see elements of it in the shooters of the last decade. Black Ops was, is, and will be an inspiration. Since its release, Call of Duty has never been the same. In 2013, Infinity Ward had the difficult mission of continuing the saga in the shadow of Black Ops 2, and without Modern Warfare as a resource, the solution was Call of Duty Ghosts, and approached the franchise with an apocalyptic theme, and that did not end up working. Advanced Warfare was the next proposal from Sledgehammer Games, set in a near future with exoskeletons and a frenetic movement system that caused division among fans. In 2015, Treyarch had to wear the hero's cape again with Black Ops 3, another futuristic title that knew how to capitalize on the success of its predecessor. Unfortunately, it all went down the following year with Infinite Warfare, a game that strayed too far from the franchise's roots. That marked the debacle of the saga, and it could be said that they continue in that pit to this day. Not even Black Ops 4 and Cold War were enough to captivate gamers as before. While Call of Duty remains a top seller, its fans feel fatigue within days of release and end up abandoning the games. The closest thing to its former glory was in 2019's Modern Warfare, and it's been 5 years since then. However, in the darkness, there always emerges a light of hope. Black Ops 6 stomped its feet since its announcement. Things are looking good so far. Will it live up to Black Ops 2? That's another matter, for a different time.